Tracy Thorn and Ben Watt have each put out several solo albums over the years. There hasn't been a new Everything But the Girl album since 1999. That all changes tomorrow with the release of Fuse, and Ben and Tracy are here. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello.
It's a good day, isn't it?
It's going all right.
Yeah, it's going all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, Guardian this morning,
Yes.
5
Yes.
stars.
Yeah.
Yes, amazing.
And Kevin just came in and just said Independent, 5 stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's downhill from here.
We've peaked. We've
We
peaked.
peaked and the album's not even out yet.
Yes.
Considering, how many times you've been here in the sense you release and then you wait to see what people think about it, are you the type of artist who I interview often who would say, look, I don't look at it, I don't really, ultimately it's for me, I'm making it for us, or are you the people that go, right, I look at them and I read
We're the
them?
ones who tell the truth and admit that, yeah, we look at them.
Okay. Tracy. Okay. All right.
I'm not saying I read every single word, and sometimes I tell you, we were discussing this the other day, that we both have a kind of method of like skim reading, where you're basically doing a quick glance just to go, is this all right?
Yeah.
You can skim read a review
Okay,
or
so
first glance or
trying
a
to
piece.
pull out
Is this okay?
superlatives.
Is this okay? Is it basically good?
Right. Okay. Well, 5 star by Alexis
can
Petridis, who is a man of impeccable taste,
Yeah.
is not bad start to the day.
I think
at
it
all.
was Noel Coward who said, wasn't it? I can take any amount of criticism as long as it's unqualified praise.
That is a dangerous way to indicate.
I think that was too high.
It's a kind of paraphrasing that I always do with artists or artistic people, and that's from Rick Rubin's latest book that came out at the beginning of this year. It's called The Creative Act, and he said that in it is that, ironically, people who create are temperamentally the least capable in many ways of dealing with the criticism that comes with it.
Yeah.
The fragility of making art makes you perhaps not particularly well groomed to be able to deal with the criticism. Is that something you
I think
relate
that's
to?
very true. Because you do have to, in this, when this becomes a job, you do have to learn to try and be quite thick-skinned about it. But being thick-skinned is not the mindset you want to be in if you're, writing like we do, quite open-hearted, emotional songs. You have to make yourself a bit vulnerable in that moment to open up, to create anything that's going to connect with a listener and move them, make them feel something emotional. You have to open up and give something, but that makes you vulnerable. So,
How do you connect then? Do you have to connect with each other to know that the song is something that connect with someone else? Or are you imagining who a person is out there and trying to connect with them?
I think you go through slightly different doors when you're writing. I think you try and write from something that is unencumbered and free and true to you. But I think there comes a point where you're midway through writing it or midway through producing it, where you have to be able to step back and think, is this relatable? Is this working? Will other people get something from this? And I think you have to keep going through those two sliding doors, as it were. You have to be able to be very immersed in the track yourself to make it real, but you have to be able to step back and say, is this going to mean something to other people?
but I think we do trust each other a lot, and I think
that's true.
we do use each other as the first point of reference. And if either of us comes with an idea, if the other one doesn't get it, then we'll go, okay, then that is a sure sign that it's not working. It doesn't matter if I think it's good. If it's not impressing Ben, then that's it, So that's the first person you have to get past is each other.
But then how much, Tracy, persuasion, or do you believe there shouldn't be any persuasion? That
Very
actually
little.
Right.
I think we don't try and persuade each other of the merit of something that we've done if it hasn't struck the other person as being good.
Since 1984, was that the case?
I
Or has that changed with
can't
time?
remember, really, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think
can't
Tracy's
actually
been
remember.
wrong many times, but, I just have to suck it up.
Yeah.
That's like being in a relationship with anyone, to be fair. isn't it? Yeah.
But I think this time around especially, we entered into it in a spirit of, look, we haven't done this for a long time.
No.
We've worked on our own for a long time, so there's a danger we could each be a bit set in our ways. So if we're going to make this work, we've got to be very receptive to each other. And especially at the beginning, I think we had to go into it in a spirit of positivity. We want something to flourish here. Therefore, if someone comes with an idea, we weren't immediately in a mood of being hypercritical and going no. So I think we got the project going in a spirit of sort of open-heartedness and being welcoming to ideas. But then further along the line, we get a bit more critical, don't we?
I think that came because there was such a long gap.
Yeah.
And I think we felt that we were sort of watering and nurturing seedlings, rather than it was a fully grown thing like it was in the old days. I think it felt very new. It almost felt like a first album again, which was actually quite good. It was quite freeing, I think. We didn't have a record company to answer to. We weren't following up a big hit. It was just us on our own, in secret, all last summer. Only our kids and 2 close friends knew we were making the record. And we got the whole thing written, recorded, and mixed before we even told anyone. So,
was there any sense of overthinking it that you had to shed before you could do it?
Yeah, and a sense of like all the sort of pressures that you might start to take as negatives, reasons not to do it. Well, let's not do it because it might not be as good as what we did before, or because, people might expect this from it. And we did have conversations where we'd sort of tiptoe towards the idea of doing it and then retreat back away from it. And then it took a while. There was a bit of a dance going on around it until there was a day when we just went, look, we could argue ourselves in and out of this forever, or we just take a plunge and have a go.
Yeah, we were just at the kitchen table and I just thought, whatever. And I just had...
Here, listen to this.
I didn't know where we were going to start from, and all I had was some piano improvisations I'd recorded into my iPhone and a few bits of overlaid electronic kind of soundscapes that I'd put together during isolation during the pandemic, because I had quite a shielded, pandemic. But that's all the music I had to offer. And I said to Tracy, well, look, this is all I've got. What do you think? And she said, actually, I really like 2 or 3 of those. And that was the starting point of the record.
From the album Fuse, Tracy, what can you identify as the track was that directly is related to those piano improvisations that you first heard at the kitchen table?
I think the first one. So the first one I can remember that we then actually completed and turned into a song was When You Mess Up. Right. And I think that was one of the ones I really liked. And I went away and I started working on a lyric for it. And then there was a day when we kind of stood by the piano and I sang it to Ben what I had. And we said at the end, I think we just wrote our first song together in 20-something years. So,
and what was nice about some of those early iPhone recordings, they're actually on the finished album.
Yeah, we kept the take on
because they had a kind of atmosphere to them. So we just looped up some of the ones we really liked and used them as the finished recorded piano on the album.
What are the unintended consequences of making an album after 24 years of not making an album together?
I mean, if you mean
emotionally,
like, what's the kind of surprising thing? I think the thing that surprised us was that it was a lot easier than we thought it might be and more fun. Right. So maybe once we shed that pressure and said to ourselves, look, this is just us playing and making some music. We're not really making an album. We're just playing and making some music. I remember the first day in the studio, at the end of it, driving home, and I said to Ben, that's the most fun I've had in I can't remember how long. So maybe this thing that we built up in our minds of thinking, if we do this, it's going to be such a big deal and it's going to be so high pressure. Actually, it turned out to be enjoyable.
Yeah, we developed a common language very quickly again. It was a bit like we got back on a bicycle that we hadn't ridden for a long time. And we realised that there was so much we liked about the construction of music and lyrics that was so similar, like a sense of economy, an emotional directness, without trying to be too sentimental in what we were saying, a kind of honesty, leaving space in the arrangements. Tracy realised that she really liked going back to those kind of big suspended voicings that I use in the chords, which give our tracks that kind of quite, personalised feeling of ambivalence and mixed feelings. And these were all... I'm trying to explain something that's quite unexplainable in some ways. It's just this common language that we have when we work. We seem to be going in the same direction.
Do any of your kids remember an Everything But the Girl album?
Not from when,
no.
not it happening while they were around. No, because it all happened before they were born, really. So they've come to us very late. Obviously, as they started going through their teens, they became a bit more aware.
Yeah.
And then I think in very recent years, some of the music we made, especially in the late 90s, there's been a bit of a resurgence of interest in that era. So they've had the experience of being out at a party, and they'll come home and go, they were playing your track before today off Walking Wounded album, and everyone was dancing to it. And we were like, oh, okay, how was that? And they went, no, it sounded good.
So, okay, so this is a completely new experience for them.
It is.
Yeah.
And how have they taken to that?
They're being cool about
I
it.
think they're being very cool. I mean, I'm sure there are mixed feelings. It must be hard for them, They're there in their early 20s trying to make, first steps in their adulthood and, carve out their own space. And here we are, just back working again for the first time in ages, and it's going very well for us. I think they must have a mixture of both pride, but a slight awkwardness, or this is mum and dad, but they're not mum and dad anymore. They're back being the people they were before we were born.
Yeah.
It's quite complex.
It is.
So, you have to be sympathetic to that.
But of course, I mean, moving away from Fame and the Starlight was partly to do with becoming a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But now
Certainly
you
for Tracy, it was,
yeah. But now at this stage where they are adults,
Yeah.
is that a contributing factor that actually they're their own adults now?
Yes. I mean, certainly we returned to that. They've left home in the last couple of years, all of them, gradually. And we've gone back to that stage of the house being just the two of us. And I think we've both found that more conducive to working together again. Whilst we were being full-time parents as well, we both used to feel that, if we were trying to be a couple and parents and being in a band together, that's too many relationships all under one roof.
I think you used the word claustrophobic.
Claustrophobic, too much. So now one bit's been taken out. We're not constantly responsible for our kids all day long anymore. There's a bit more freedom. There's just a bit more sense of being able to do what we want to do.
Is this counteracting the empty nest syndrome? This
Yeah,
album?
totally, yeah. We made an album because we were so sad our kids went to university.
And look, we've got a 5-star review in The Guardian.
Thanks, kids. This wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you. Even there. Are they still back for laundry and stuff, though? I mean,
No, they're very good. They're properly
good.
independent.
Good.
I've brought them up to
Yeah,
adults.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. So, I mean, are you beginning to radiate smugness? Are you allowing yourselves to do that? Considering,
That's a horrible word.
but why? But wait a minute. Why shouldn't you be? I mean, smug. You're right. It's a pejorative.
Relieved
but it's
is probably more.
Yeah, but it's got to be more than that.
No, there is pride. There is pride.
Pride
you know?
is a good word, maybe.
I
Yeah,
think that's
you
what
can
it
be
is.
proud of
Yeah.
having done some work that you think is good, and then it being received well.
But interestingly, it's not good. It's excellent.
Oh,
No, but 5 stars across the board. I mean, you're looking at Pitchfork, Rolling Stone, Guardian, Independent. I mean, it's extraordinary,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that is, I don't know. I mean, you probably don't have time to process. You haven't had time to process.
No.
that, 'cause they're all coming in as coming in. One of them came in just before we came on air.
Yes, I know.
Right?
I know.
So
Oh, look, there's another 3 at the door.
someone's just flew a plane over MBH here in central London.
But
So-
some of that feeling is relief because the pride that Ben's describing, I think maybe is the pride we have since we finished the record. We've thought since we finished it last October, November, that we'd done something really good. But then you don't know for ages whether or not people are going to agree with you. So, we've been convinced that we've done a good piece of work and we've been really looking forward to sharing it with people. But with that slight hesitancy that you think, well, supposing we're wrong, supposing we've deluded ourselves that it's really good. And actually everyone goes, oh, shame.
when those piano improvisations were just played out loud at the kitchen table,
Yeah.
in your mind, was it, I want to make a record and release a record, or I just want to make some music?
No, it
with
was very
Tracy
much
again?
the second thing.
Yeah.
I think the only way we could get started was to begin at this very low base of low expectations. Even when we started creating files on my computer of some of the early songs, I refused to call it Everything But the Girl. it seemed quite jinxy. So we called ourselves Tren, Tracy and Ben, and all the files are just called Tren. So we just tiptoed our way into the project. And I was aware that these soundscapes and piano stuff that I was doing, it was different to what we'd done before. I thought the album might go in a more ambient, experimental direction, which I thought would be cool in a way because we'd never done that. But what happened was, as the weeks went by and we started to put Tracy's vocals on things in with a real microphone in a real studio, it suddenly became Everything But the Girl. And we started to think we have to rise to the occasion here. You know, this is getting serious. And I started to put beats on a couple of tracks. And Tracy popped up like a meerkat and said, I like that.
Yeah,
You know.
more of this, please.
You know, and so gradually the kind of tempo and the pulse of the album picked up. And in fact, the first single we put out, Nothing Left to Lose, in January, that was the very, very last track that we did for the album. It was like we kept trying to trump ourselves with one more.
Let's listen to Nothing Left to Lose, because when I first heard that in January, my gosh, it blew me away.
Nothing left to lose. What is left to lose?
Just so good. My gosh, this is so good. Do you have a desire to be in big rooms watching people dance to this, or is your first love, Tracy, to have your headphones on in a studio and the intimacy of that, and perhaps you can leave it alone being in big rooms?
I like the odd moment in a room watching people dance to it, as long as the DJ's playing it. I don't want to be singing it.
Right, okay. Yeah, okay.
I like, so the actual performance side is not something I have any desire to go back to.
Really? Okay.
No.
Right.
I'm a studio kind of person. I mean, when you talked about the other thing, that the headphones on and the making it in the studio, it's just one of my favourite things in the world. I love that.
Right. So no one's going to lure you back onto stages?
I don't think so.
I think, we sort of made that clear for quite a long time,
Yeah, that's
that,
true.
live is not something that we intend to do. And I think in a way it was quite freeing, again, with this record. It enabled us to focus on just trying to make something in the studio that was modern and fresh and different to what we'd done before. It felt quite on the front foot. And I think one of the problems with, pop shows going on tour is you end up on the back foot all the time because the audience expects you to revisit the past. And I think, for an art form, if you like rock and roll, which was there to be revolutionary, in the 50s, to blow away music that had come before. I think there is a big part of music these days that we've got into a situation where we're just revering the past all the time. It becomes terribly nostalgic, and you're expected to do a show where you play your old hits, preferably note for note, as they were originally recorded. It's very constraining when you've got new ideas all the time. I completely respect it. I understand my audiences want it. And I don't mind the artists who go out and do it night after night. But I think both Tracy and I find it quite suffocating as an idea. So to just put that to one side and go, we're just going to do a studio album. We're going to make it modern. It's very liberating. You would never expect Miles Davis, for the 40th anniversary of A Kind of Blue, to have gone out and done it note for note as he originally recorded it. It's unthinkable.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of jazz musicians. They get to improvise and change every night, and it's expected of them. But there is this slight constraint on pop musicians, particularly live,
Yeah.
that you have to go backwards all the time.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think just not that long ago, there was some criticism from certain circles that Disclosure did a show and they just wanted to play new stuff, and people saying, well, they didn't play enough of the stuff we love.
Yeah. Well, I remember back in 85 when we went out to Europe for the first time, and countries like Italy and Germany were just waking up to Eden. And in our minds, we were already halfway to Love Not Money, our second album, which was a very different sounding record.
Yeah.
And we just started playing the songs from that album on the tour, and we disappointed lots of people, because they all came out wanting to hear the songs from Eden, and we were thinking, oh, we did that last year.
Yes. We've always been a bit like, that thing of we're always most excited by what we're doing right this minute.
Right.
And I know that doesn't sit super comfortably, really, with the notion of packaging, especially the age we are now. And, you know, we've got a very long catalogue behind us. If we were to go on tour, it would come with all sorts of requirements, really, which we just wouldn't be that into doing.
So, I mean, what's it like then being taken on a stadium tour with U2 then? If that's the kind of, oh God, I don't want to, that's the biggest room you could possibly be in, supporting a massive rock and roll band. What are your memories of that?
Well, that was why we said no.
But we never did it.
We said no to it.
That was the thing we famously said no to.
Yeah. I mean, we knew even then, I think.
But being
that
lured
wasn't-
into that,
it
being
wasn't-
asked
But
that.
the thing is, you can only tempt people to do things that there's a little part of them that wants to do. And I think with us, there wasn't really a part of us that wanted to do it. So we weren't very persuadable. Because we were looking at it going, no, that's an amazing opportunity for someone who would absolutely love to do it. We're not those people.
Because reading about that, I just thought to turn, you know, because it's not you. There's such a pressure and a machine around an act, isn't
Yeah,
there?
yes.
About all the benefits that will come from going on that
that's true.
stadium
I do
tour.
remember annoying a few people. I can remember a couple of conversations of saying things like that and just... First of all, people looking at me a little bit sort of pityingly, like, oh, it hasn't been explained to you properly what this means.
Oh, Tracy doesn't get it.
And then me going, no, I do understand, and it's still no. And then, bit of irritation.
I mean, even when, you know, we were at our peak at the end of the 90s, we were going out on tour, playing to more and more people, you know, big theatres, small arenas, thousands of people rather than hundreds of people. And I started to think this isn't really working. I was thinking our music isn't really coming across very well because I think our music is quite subtle. You know, it needs, you know, some listening to, and the lyrics need paying attention to. And suddenly we were playing in these bigger spaces and the gestures have to become two-dimensional.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be more direct with people. And I actually found myself not enjoying it, you know, so even to stop at that point wasn't a great hardship, however many people we disappointed.
What were the sounds swirling around in the musical ether that you think had an influence on you and fed into Fuse?
I mean, it's hard to say because, you know, we have music on at home all the time and a very wide range of anything. I tend to go into a phase once I start working on something where I almost try not to listen to too much. I don't know whether you feel a bit that as well. You know, you almost start to think, okay, this is all the stuff we've been listening to for the last couple of years, but in a way now we need to not get too indebted to things or even anxious about stuff that you listen to and you think, I really love that. Is there a danger I'm going to absorb too much of it? Or is it going to be intimidating? You know, if I listen to this Frank Ocean album now, is it just going to make me go, oh, it's not even worth bothering? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So the people who inspire you so much, but then you think, I have to not listen to that for a while. Otherwise it's going to make me feel like, you know, I can't do anything as good as that. So sometimes I step back a bit from music when I'm actually working on something.
How do you get that balance right as a creative of self-belief, but that kind of insecurity and imposter syndrome that can actually be a fuel as well? How do you get that right? Have you got that right?
I think it's just an ever-shifting thing. It's not like you settle into one mood that is then constant. Don't you think?
So where are you at now? I mean, okay, let's see if we can go back to pre-5-star reviews, right?
Yeah.
And you're on the cusp of releasing this out into the world.
Yeah.
What were the feelings then compared to kind of now where the validation is like everywhere to be seen?
I think there is a kind of bloody-mindedness to us. You know,
Yes, as people who tried to get you on a U2 tour would
that-
attest to, yeah.
that we kind of knew it was good to ourselves. We felt very, as I said, very proud of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we had a lot of belief in it, and that gives you a bit of resilience. But you know, everybody has doubt, and you know, lies awake at night, sometimes thinking, "What if I've got this completely wrong?" You know, what if that wobble bass line that I put on Nothing Left to Lose, everyone just thinks is rubbish, you know? Of course you worry about things like that, but, you know, you have to get through that barrier to create. You know, that's just part of the job.
Do you share that? Those feelings
Yeah.
from a lyrical point of view?
Yeah, and you know, I think we are both a real mixture of, as Ben said, the bloody mindedness that keeps you going. I've talked about having stage fright in the past, and that it was there with me even during the years when we did tour a lot. And sometimes when I've told that story to people, I think it's made them think, oh gosh, poor Tracy feeling like that. But when I look back at my younger self, I think, wow, brave Tracy getting up every night and doing that with stage fright. So I do think we've both got a mixture of perhaps where we started this interview, talking about, having the openness to actually be a creative person. And the Rick Rubin quote about you're not necessarily the best person to cope with it. But maybe, I don't know, maybe we've argued ourselves around with this, where I'm thinking maybe artists are a bit tougher than we think. And maybe, we have to be. So maybe the fact that we've lasted this long and we can still put out music despite fears that maybe it isn't as good as you think it is, but you still go, no, but I'm still going to put it out. And I'm still going to take that leap.
Indeed. We shall carry on our conversation. Please stay with us a little bit more because we've got lots more to talk about. Everything But the Girls album, Fuse, getting 5-star reviews across the board. It's absolutely brilliant. Tracy Thorn and Ben Watt are here. They're back with their first new Everything But the Girl album since 1999. It's called Fuse. It's out tomorrow. And as I said, every review so far, and I've read lots of them, are all just glowing about how brilliant this is, with people saying this is how to do a comeback album, which of course can't go through your own mind, Tracy and Ben, when you're trying to make a record, because it's just too overwhelming a burden, isn't it?
Yeah, we had to kind of say to ourselves, we're not making a comeback album. I mean, that's what we were talking about earlier, the trying to sort of trick ourselves.
Yeah,
we weren't doing that, because it does carry a certain weight with it, doesn't it? Then there's the danger you're looking backwards rather than focusing on the now.
But are you looking for a new audience for your music?
I don't think that even crossed our mind when we were making it. We were just doing it for ourselves, really. I don't think you can look ahead like that. I think you just have to make the best work you can and then step back and say, okay, what does it become? And then you start talking to people at the record company and they start identifying tracks they think will connect with people. And they're perhaps tracks you hadn't even thought of before.
Do you like that conversation?
I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. And you realise that you are slowly, a bit like with your children, you're releasing them into the world, and people are going to have opinions about them, and you can't get too precious about it.
I think in terms of, thinking about an audience, you were saying you were trying to attract a new audience. I don't think we think that particularly, but I think what we try not to do is get constrained by thinking about the audience we do have.
Yeah. You've never done that.
We've never done that. And, if we started to think, oh God, people really loved this when we did this. And obviously now with social media where you get a lot of feedback from your audience, which is great, but it means you hear all their particular likes and dislikes. And, we have a certain section of our audience who'd love us to do stuff like that. And then there's these big, and you do have to sort of try and shut that out of your mind and just think, look, I understand that's all fine, but we're ultimately the people in charge here. We have to decide what we're doing.
Because it's the late 90s. I mean, what you were on your 8th album? Is that right? When the Todd Terry remix happened? And
so
then
Walking Wounded was
8th, yeah. Amplified Heart, which is the one that had Missing on.
Yes.
In 94. And then Todd's mix became a hit in 95.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that, at that time, because we talked earlier on about kind of things that happen that you have no control over.
Yeah.
Right? And then, of course, there's a race from a business perspective, record company, to harness that power and that energy. And then, of course, success happens like that. And there are all these weird and wonderful things that happen with success. I remember interviewing Alex Kapranos once, and he said, I said, what's the weirdest showbiz thing that happened to you? And he went to a party, a Grammys party that Usher was throwing, where Usher was standing on a raised platform holding a baby tiger while people walked around him.
Right.
Okay.
I've done that.
Oh, not that old game.
Jesus, I was doing that back in the 80s, mate.
And I wonder what for you fame has opened up in kind of weird ways where you've kind of gone, well, I'm not really sure about this. This is a bit weird.
I don't know. I do think we swerved quite a lot of it. I think we've often, Yeah, I don't
Sometimes
know.
it's
Stuck to our
difficult
own
to.
world. It can be difficult.
Especially when
Yeah.
they fly you over to America,
That's true.
right? Right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, right, play the
Yeah.
game. It's like radio people and all these kinds of
Yeah.
things to do.
I mean, yes, turning up at radio stations very early in the morning and you're not really aware whether anyone knows who on earth you are, but there's an interview scheduled. I think the thing is with our second lot of success, the 90s success, it was the second time around for us, and we were already in our early 30s. So we'd had the bit of success in the 80s, when we were very young. And then we'd experienced a bit of a decline. We'd felt what it felt like when that went away a bit. I remember there was a period when we stopped being as successful in Europe and we went off on a couple of European promo trips. And suddenly there wasn't a car to meet us at the airport. And, we were sort of sorting ourselves out and we thought, oh, OK, this is what it feels like when it goes away. So I think when success came back around in the 90s, on the one hand, we were incredibly grateful and, oh, wow, isn't this nice again? And B, we knew not to take it for granted. We knew it can go away again. This is just,
And it came
temporary.
in the wake of my, illness in 92 when I nearly died.
Yes,
and
that's true as well.
That was a huge turning point in
Yeah.
our lives. So perhaps everything just got put in a bit more perspective,
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it goes, what is it that you miss about it, apart from, of course, cars turning up at airports?
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Right. But it depends, doesn't it, of whether you seek external validation.
Yeah.
Right? Because then once that's gone,
Yes.
that's a very difficult place to be.
Yeah, it throws you back on your own, ideas about your own work.
And why you did it in the first place.
And why you did it in the first place and what you should do next. Should you be trying to chase success and bring it back, or do you just carry on doing what you want to be doing? So,
And it can make you feel a bit foolish sometimes.
In what way?
Well, why am I still doing this if the car's not turning up? You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
If nobody really wants it, who am I fooling here? Is this really any good anyway?
yeah.
So those kind of feelings come into it too, I think.
So, but now, of course, clearly, from the critic's perspective, everybody should want views in their lives.
Yes,
Because
I think every home needs
Every home needs
Yes.
views.
Yeah, there's a fuse
in every
shaped
dream
hole
home, a copy
in every
of
house.
views.
That
We're
needs to be
writing
filled.
the ad copy here, just
Well,
ad-libbing
it's
it.
coming through.
Yeah.
But then I guess, what does this mean for where you go next with Everything But the Girl? Have you begun to think about that?
We're kind of really trying hard not to. I think
Right.
almost deliberately. And I know it's something that when you do interviews, often it gets asked. People want to know what the plan is.
Yeah. Keep it moving.
Because,
keep it moving.
exactly.
Keep it moving.
Come on, we're getting boring now.
Yeah.
But we didn't plan this even really. It just kind of came about, and it's a big moment for us. This, it's a big moment, and I think what we've tried to say to each other, and we have had a few conversations of just, come on, we've got to really, being mindful, be in this moment.
Yes.
We've got to experience it. I don't want to look back in 6 months' time and go, wow, we got a bit distracted and started thinking about the net, and actually it whizzed by. Because this is a bit once in a lifetime, really.
Well, it's once in a generation for certain.
We can't do this again. Well, I was joking earlier saying, we can't do another 25-year comeback unless we do it in our mid-80s, which might be pushing it.
So how much was this to do with the passage of time?
It was partly because I certainly, the pandemic was a terrible kind of moment of realization of, powerlessness in the face of things happening, God laughs at your plans, all that kind of stuff. And I think I did have a sudden sense of time is passing and we keep saying, oh, maybe one day we'll make a record together again. But supposing we sit around and we put that off indefinitely and then that one day doesn't come. We just miss the moment.
What is because now we're going back 30 years, Ben, but what is being faced with your own mortality so early on in life do to how you live the rest of your life?
It's left a legacy, I mean, there are things about it that I have to cope with still every day, My diet was very severely changed. I was only 29 when it happened because I lost so much of my intestine to surgery. Lately, I've had another complication where I've developed full-on anosmia, which is loss of smell. So, there are things in the days that, get you down sometimes, just basic things. And I'm constantly going in for checkups and, you're altering drugs and speaking to new consultants and doctors. But that is just part of my life now, and I try not to moan about it to people. A lot of people have other burdens they carry around that you never hear about. But it is there. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. But in spite of it, you have to get up in the morning and come up with something good to do, and
I think that's maybe the legacy it left with you. I
Yeah.
think it has meant that you have remained someone who is kind of, well, I'm damned if I'm going to let this stop me.
This
I'm
is the
gonna
bloody
keep
mindedness.
The bloody mindedness coming through, yeah.
it's like the knight in the Monty Python film has his
It's
arm
just a
cut
flesh
off.
wound,
Just
yeah.
a flesh wound.
He is-
Come on, chicken.
You are a bit like that, aren't you?
Yeah, but okay. So then, what role does music play then? Because for every artist that I interview, tends to be. I interviewed the rapper Dave once, and he said something that just always stuck with me, which is he said, "Without music, I don't exist,"
Oh, wow.
which I found incredibly kind of profound.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Does music serve something to help with the health issues that you have? Because it provides something, a purpose.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been important to me.
Of course.
And even from a kid, my dad was a jazz musician. I grew up with older siblings who all were playing, they were 10 years older than me. So the house was full of music from the 70s as I was growing up. And I was immersed in music from a very early age. So it's always been a part of me. And the kind of drive I felt to be involved in music was there before I got ill.
Yeah.
Some people say, "Oh, has it made you, more driven, more determined?" I don't know. I think it's always been there. In some ways,
Yeah.
the illness was just a bit in the way. Just
Right.
It's just a nuisance.
this is such a, I nearly died. I wouldn't. Come on, let's.
I've got an album to make.
Yeah,
come on, I
come on,
can't die.
guys.
I've got
Yeah.
records to make. Yeah, exactly. Well, but is it at all therapy? Is music therapy for either of you? Or actually, because, I can't remember the author. I remember interviewing an author and she said, no, in order to write, I need to do therapy. I can't use it as therapy. Right.
That's probably quite good advice. Yes. Look, I do think it is in some ways. And I do think, I don't know what the word is, there is something healing about moments of returning to music. I find the experience of singing, I know people think, oh, you don't sing in front of people, but I do. I sing in a studio into a microphone and I record. And I always find that a very emotional experience. I love that moment. And there are moments at home sometimes, I think, if the day's been hard or something bad's happened or whatever, there'll be a moment sometimes when you drift off to the piano, hon, and I'll hear you starting to play the piano and I'll be in the kitchen or something and I just think, oh, okay, yeah, we're back again. Do you know what I mean? We're back, And it's like that's the thing we turn to, I think.
So it's a stress
to
diffuser.
reset. It's just a little reset.
A little bit,
button.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
this thing has happened, but oh well, let's put a record on, play the piano.
Yeah.
Now you can, of course, see Fuse, the album, which is out tomorrow, as a body of work. Are there recurring themes that go through it emotionally?
I think they've only dawned on us since it was finished.
Yeah.
I think when we made it, we were trying to, just try to be as free as possible and instinctive as possible. But since starting to do interviews where people have been asking us questions, we have started to look down on the record and realise, oh my God, there are some themes there that are, that are through lines through the work. I think it has been very influenced by the isolation that we all experienced during the pandemic, by which I mean there are some songs that are quite psychologically analytical of how we are and how we feel and who we are. But then there are other songs, the more kind of exterior songs, which are songs about going out, the things we missed, the importance
Communion.
of communality,
Yeah.
clubland.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tracy was saying she was always very aware during the pandemic of those images of empty clubs, tables and chairs, DJ booths, dark, all this kind of stuff. It was very sad in a way. And I wrote a couple of songs on this record, which are sort of eulogies for the heyday of clubbing, particularly 90s clubbing on a Sunday, which I was very involved with. There's one track called No One Knows We're Dancing, where I kind of populate it with all these characters who used to be on this scene where I DJ'd.
Driving Fiat Cinquecento.
Yeah, exactly. So this kind of interior-exterior thing goes on throughout the record, I think.
And I think there's a recurring theme of kind of seize the moment.
Yes, exactly.
Which, again, I didn't really notice. Someone had to point out to me, the first two tracks are called Nothing Left to Lose and Caution to the Wind. And I'm like, yeah, fair point. The third one, Run a Red Light, the chorus is, Run a red light, forget the morning, this is tonight.
Forget the morning. This is tonight. Morning. This is tonight.
Without really noticing it, we kept coming back to this idea of, you're here right now. Make it count.
Is that entirely pandemic related?
I don't, not entirely, no.
Right.
I think it's probably a lot of things, but I'm
Yes.
sure that fed into it. But it's perhaps a getting older thing as well.
Yes.
It's a kind of, and maybe while we were writing the songs, part of what was going through our mind was a feeling of, come on, seize this moment, make it count, make something happen.
It's interesting. Someone in publishing was saying to me that sales of non-fiction aren't as good as sales of fiction, and people feel a need now, considering what we've all been through, to escape.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I wonder with this album, certain elements, like external elements of this album, is about that escapism that people need, that hope.
Well, yes, exactly. Yeah, just a sort of a looking outwards as well as inwards. A looking forwards.
And the need for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The need to connect with people.
Yeah.
I think that keeps coming up on the record. I'm trying to get close to someone. I'm trying to connect.
So because you're not going to go into big rooms and do this, then what do you rely on in terms of feeling the energy from people who will appreciate what you do?
I think social media has been incredibly helpful. I mean, you have to understand this is the first Everything But the Girl record that's come out in the age of social media.
Yeah.
It just didn't.
None of those
exist.
sites existed. Yeah, exactly.
So the response we get, the immediacy of the response, has been incredibly, supportive and very buoyant kind of feeling. When the very first single came out, that first morning it was played on the radio, and we immediately it was on. Like social media was just ablaze. Well, certainly our little corner of it, with just love and, people telling their stories about what our music meant to them. And that's as good as a gig, as far as I'm concerned.
Do you feel that? Do you feel that?
I think-
Yes, it's amazing.
Right.
Because we've experienced the opposite, which in the old days, you put your record out, it goes out into the shops, and then you sit at home twiddling your thumbs, hoping that people are going and buying it. And then you get very dependent on reviews, because that's the only feedback you have, really. Fan letters, I suppose, which in the old days we used to answer. I still get people popping up on social media going, here's a scan of the answer you sent me 30 years ago, replying to a fan letter.
So you would on what medium would you write letters?
This is back in the
or a
day when
postcard.
people wrote.
We were quite good on
sent
postcards.
to people. I'm talking about like the early 80s when we weren't communicating with thousands and thousands of people. Probably.
Yeah, but still, that's still quite time consuming. And why did you do that?
A connection, I suppose. I suppose that's always been a thing. If someone identifies strongly enough with someone you've written to write to you going, this really meant a lot to me, that felt something, to respond to.
Yeah. I mean,
like a nice thing.
The connectivity you've got these days with social media,
it's so easy, isn't it?
It's so easy.
Click like. That's the equivalent of the postcard reply.
Yeah.
And also you're being encouraged every day to do something, to make yourself visible, to post more content, more clips, more stuff. I can remember sometimes our album would come out and it would be so quiet that I would go up to Our Price, and the only thing I could think of doing was to move our record to the front of the section beginning with E.
Important.
Thinking that it might make a difference.
Put it in front of the Everly Brothers.
Exactly.
I've got this really horribly sad image of Ben with the hood up.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah, and someone behind the counter going, Ben Watt?
Yeah.
Moving his record to the front. Now, please pass this on to someone on the text. Thank you so much, Tracy and Ben. Since the mid-'80s, when I first heard you as a teenager, I've fallen back on your words and music to bring myself back to earth, following joy, pain, heartache and love. The soundtrack in my mind, which is keeping me sane.
Wow, okay.
That's very
you
nice.
see? Yeah.
That's quite a privilege.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we all know that feeling because we all get it from other artists. So when someone tells that to you, you think, I know exactly what you mean. For me, because I get that from Nina Simone or whatever.
Yes.
You have a moment when you listen to an artist and, you can take courage from them or, I don't know, all sorts of different feelings. And yeah.
Has there ever been an artist that's reached out to you and said, I love your work, and it's blown you away?
Oh, God, I remember in the very early days, someone said Prince liked our first album and we were a bit knocked out. David Bowie liked Walking Wounded, apparently.
Yeah. And then
That was quite good.
a few years ago, our kids came running up to us because Tyler, the Creator,
Oh, yes.
had put like an Instagram post with one of our earliest singles as the music. And to them, that was it. We'd arrived.
Tyler, the Creator, yeah.
And then we're on a top 10 list on Tupac's exhibition, aren't we?
Yeah, his
There's
favourite
a page
bands.
torn out of his notebook, and it goes number 1, Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra.
Number 2, Everything But the Girl.
Yeah.
Like, what?
What a list of people.
So it's quite a range.
Bowie,
isn't it?
Prince, Tyler, the Creator and Tupac.
Oh, yeah.
and Kurt Cobain.
Cobain loved Tracy's first band, the Marine Girls.
so-
His journals have got stuff about the Marine Girls in there.
So it's quite wide-ranging.
Yeah.
These are all...
Can you...
But it's all hearsay.
But I can't verify any of
Okay.
this.
How can you persuade your... Because teenagers will never think their parents are cool, right? Regardless what they do. Did yours think you were cool, considering that, of course, they'd never seen an Everything But the Girl album, but the music came back and it's...
Well, we insisted on it.
I mean, I don't think they thought
They had to
about it.
refer
Yeah,
to it.
and how did that work out for you, Ben? I wonder, were you cool parents? Well, it's never for you to say whether
It's
you're cool
not,
parents or
it's
not,
not,
but
no, just that.
do you think that they thought of you guys as, they're musicians?
I mean, possibly a little bit. It's still, as jobs go, it's still...
Yeah, but you weren't doing that job for their
we were
entire
doing
life.
it separately.
Well, you were doing
I
it
guess we
separately,
were. We were
Yeah,
still
you were.
both working on music.
And I was
And
DJing
DJing.
a lot when the kids were
when
young.
they were very
Multi-award-winning
small,
DJ.
It was literally, white labels arriving at the door every day, and they grew up to a soundtrack
Yeah.
of house music.
So are your kids vinyl kids?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, because I can imagine a lot of their friends or contemporaries.
Yeah, but they've all come back around to it. Whether that, they've all
That's true.
They've all had their vinyl.
Yeah, and vinyl sales
yeah.
have increased. So so look, you're doing the rounds. Obviously, people are freaking out about this record. Absolutely loving it. What are you now that you made an album? What's your relationship with it like now? Can you put it on and listen to it, or is it like
I still do. I'm still listening to it.
Good.
Yeah, I think it's still very alive to me.
Right.
We
it's
only
still-
finished it last
yeah,
October,
exactly. It
so
still
it
feels very
wow,
fresh.
And here we are.
Yeah, I still have moments when I want to just check. Oh, what does that one sound like again? Because I've just read it being mentioned in a review, and I want to remind myself.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, I'm still checking it out.
Good. And
Check
so
to see if they're right.
And the world can check it out as of tomorrow with all those 5-star reviews that are currently out there. The album is called Fuse. It's out tomorrow. Tracy and Ben, Everything But the Girl, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks very much.